Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. Today, I'm honored to sit down with one of the most legendary figures in sports and business, Leigh Steinberg. Over the course of 5 decades at Steinberg Sports Entertainment, Leigh has represented more than 300 professional athletes, including icons like Steve Young, Warren Moon, and Troy Aikman, negotiating over $4 billion in contracts and directing more than $1 billion to charities worldwide. He's often credited as the real-life inspiration for Jerry Maguire, but his true legacy runs even deeper, from pioneering brand building to raising awareness about concussions long before it became a national conversation. In our discussion, we'll talk about how he recognized opportunities others overlooked, what he hopes to accomplish through his new Concussion Foundation, and the most underrated element of negotiation that every leader should understand. Leigh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to get this going. So, you started your career at a time when the role of a sports agent wasn't nearly as visible as it is today. What drove you to see the opportunity as space that others overlooked?
Um, I was going to law school at Cal, Berkeley, and they moved the freshman football team into a dorm where I was the graduate counselor.
Okay.
And one of the students was a quarterback named Steve Bartkowski. And in 1975, he became the very first player picked in the NFL draft. I was a year out of law school, but I'd been traveling, and Bartkowski asked me if I'd represent him.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting the largest rookie contract in NFL history. And but what really transfixed me was the fact that the country was so crazy about athletic figures, how they were the movie stars, they were the celebrities. We get to Atlanta and there's Klieg lights flashing in the sky like for a movie premiere, and the huge crowds pressed up against the police line, and the first thing we heard was, "We interrupt the late news to bring you a special news." Steve Bartkowski and Leigh Steinberg have just arrived at the Atlanta airport.
Man.
So my father had two core values outside of spiritual ones. One was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was try to make a meaningful, positive impact in the world and help people who couldn't help themselves. I saw where the athletes could be role models. But at that particular time, Dylan, they didn't have a recognized right of agentry. So in those first couple of years, I could call up a team and say, "I'm representing player X," and they would slam down the phone and say, "We don't have to deal with agents."
Wow.
So it was fairly rudimentary, but
Yeah.
I saw how television was going to transform the revenue into franchises and how we were about to see a major paradigm shift.
Yeah, I think like you were the first one, and so I mean, you really worked with everybody. When you think back working with clients like Steve Young and Warren Moon, though, what was a moment when you realized you weren't just negotiating contracts but shaping the future of professional sports? Because again, you worked with everyone, Oscar De La Hoya, everyone.
It was really from that first client where I realized an athlete could go back and retrace his roots and go to the high school and set up a scholarship fund, or go to the college and set up a fund of some sort and bond with the alums. And then at the pro level, set up a charitable foundation for some cause that was important to the athlete. And then we would have the leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders sit on a board. So that is the running back worked on putting the 220th single mothers and their family into the first home loan by making a down payment. Or today it's Patrick Mahomes with his 15 in the Mahomies that helps at-risk kids. So I realized that the high profile gave athletes a forum, and really we could tackle any problem. So if it was domestic violence, I had the heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement that said, "Real men don't hit women."
Mm,
That could do more to transform the attitudes of rebellious adolescents towards domestic violence than 1,000 authority figures ever could.
right, right. Did they just start flocking your way though? It felt like because again, you worked with everyone, it felt like, and especially back in the day. So were they just once you had a few or more just coming your way and asking to work with you?
Yes, we had a profile of an athlete who was a self-starter, had a pristine work ethic, who saw himself as a role model, was
Mm,
willing to try to bring healing to people away from the sport.
hmm.
We looked for self-starters. And so the second year I did it, I talked to a bunch of players and didn't sign that many. And then I realized, well, if you're going to have a role modeling practice that emphasizes second career, that emphasizes player health, it was going to take a pretty mature set of parents and the player himself to get excited by that. And so
Yeah.
I just started profiling them, and that led to 64 first round draft picks in football and 50 in baseball. And the very first player picked in the first round, 8 different years,
Yeah.
and 12 players in the Hall of Fame. So, and we kept expanding sport-wise, but in football, there were weekends where I represented half the starting quarterbacks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely ahead of your time, Lee, and so obviously time, things have changed and transformed since the 80s, 90s, but you were guiding athletes to build their personal brands long before it was a mainstream idea, like we discussed. Today with social media and digital platforms, it feels like everyone's trying to be their own brand, right? As they should. What did you see early on that others missed, and how do you view the opportunities and challenges of brand building in today's world?
That if an athlete built enough brand, he could then parlay that into a dynamic second career.
Mm,
So I would ask an athlete when they walked in my office at first, what are the skills, talents, and interests you have besides athletic ones?
yeah.
And can we deal with that? Can we use branding and networking to have you go to a series of banquets and meet uh, potential partners?
Hmm.
So, for example, when a player was with the 49ers,
Yeah.
um, they play and train in Santa Clara.
Mhm.
So I'd say to Steve Young and Brent Jones and other 49ers, what businesses do you think are proximate to your training facility where we can build partnerships? And so that was high tech
Yeah.
and venture capital.
Mm,
And so that led to Steve Young running his own venture capital company and Brent Jones putting together a $4 billion hedge fund.
mm,
It led to Ward Dunn owning a minority share of the Atlanta Falcons. It led to Bruce Smith, the all-time sack leader, owning a casino hotel. And so it was a larger vision of what an athlete could be. And especially in football,
yeah.
evolved to the point where 91 of the top 100 Nielsen rated television shows were NFL football,
Mm,
and 130 million people watch the Super Bowl. So not only is pro football the most popular sport by 2 or 3 to 1, it's the most popular form of televised entertainment.
yeah.
And that meant that the quarterbacks became leading men.
Hmm.
That meant that there was a crossover with the right performance and the right personality to transcend the narrow genre of hardcore sports fans and become a household name.
Right.
And with that, marketing was easy with all the product categories, the automotive, breakfast cereals, shoes, clothing and apparel, and all the rest of it.
Mm,
Um, we also discovered that with the right branding on social media, an athlete could set up a platform on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And if the numbers were high enough, if he could produce little cuts of content that kept people engaged over time,
Yeah.
and that those numbers would grow, and that alone was enough to attract advertisers to
Mm.
um, want to be on that platform.
Smart, smart. Yeah, I mean, you weren't just, so obviously you were not just setting up contracts for them with their sport. You were looking at life after sports, right? And setting them up for success for the rest of their lives.
So, for example, Troy Aikman was interested in media,
Mm.
but that meant that he needed to do preparatory work and transfer the incredible skill set he had in football to another pastime.
Yeah.
So we had him do NFL Europe one off season, so he picked up some experience. And then when he started at Fox, I negotiated a contract where instead of a two-man booth, he was in a three-man booth, which
Mm.
meant two color commentators.
Yeah.
In a two-man booth, the color person has to talk after every play. In a three-man booth, every other play. So it gave him more time to perfect and hone his skills. And so that when he kept getting promoted up to the higher and higher levels till he became part of the lead team for Fox, um, he was uh, really effective.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing because I mean, again, they were really setting themselves up for success with you. And you, again, you saw that ahead of a lot of people. So it makes a total sense why everybody wanted to work with you and your agency, but you're also famous for the inspiration behind Jerry Maguire, like we mentioned, as many know. Looking back, do you feel the film left a lasting impact on the sports agent industry, perhaps inspiring a new wave of agents, or was its influence more cultural than industry changing?
No, I think it was both
Okay.
because Cameron Crowe, the writer director, spent a couple years following me around,
Yeah.
and he wanted to integrate himself into the sports scene. So I took him to the NFL league meetings in Palm Desert. I took him to the NFL draft back in New York, where I had the first player in the first round.
Yeah.
I took him to pro scouting day at Southern Cal. I took him to games and Super Bowl parties, and I told him lots of stories.
Mm.
He went off and wrote the script, and my job was to vet the script to make sure that the willing suspension of disbelief that holds you in a motion picture, you think the dialogue's real, you think the look's real, didn't get somehow fractured
Yeah.
into a spoof. And then I worked with the athletes, and I took with the
The
actors,
actors. Hmm.
Cuba Gooding Jr. down to the Super Bowl and made him pretend in Phoenix that he was a wide receiver playing time for a week. And
Wow.
so it became the highest grossing film in the sports venue until later the Blind Side came out, and most of the phrases all became part of the culture. And
Hmm.
I've rarely walked through an airport or gone out to dinner where someone didn't run up to the table and either ask me to say four words or say the four words to me that start with "Show me the."
Money. Yep. Oh, that's amazing, Lee. Thanks for touching on that. And you're still working with agents a lot right now, right? So I did want to talk a little bit about your agent academy. Can you speak a little bit more and what's in the future, in the near future?
So the concept was to try to bring along a new generation, not just of agents, but sports professionals
Mm.
who had specific skill training in the components necessary to succeed. So we've done about 35 of these and trained probably 10 or 15,000 people.
Wow.
And we talk about listening skills, how to draw out another human being, cut below the surface, and have them reveal their deepest anxieties and fears and greatest hopes and dreams. So you develop the skill to put yourself in another person's heart and mind and see the world the way they see it.
Wow.
We do a negotiation problem where half of them play general managers and half of them play player agents, and they have
Yeah.
a contract to do. It's based on my Winning with Integrity book, the 12 rules for negotiating success. And then we do a recruiting exercise, and they've had to recruit everybody from Warren Moon to Patrick Mahomes to a whole group of players and their families and break into agent groups and pitch and
Mm,
try to sell the client. And then we do a branding marketing exercise where you have to create a website and you have to create a brand and a logo. And so they understand how to do that, and then how to set up a charitable foundation, and then damage control. So the next one is here in Newport Beach, California, November 7th and 8th. And the goal is to jumpstart someone's career, to
yeah.
give them, to explain to them agency, but also if you want to work for a team, a league, a conference, an athletic department, sports marketing, sports PR, sports media, that you get the basic skills for all of that.
Okay. So would they need like a sports marketing degree or something to be able to get into the academy? How would they join? Is there certain backgrounds?
By just going to our website, Laigh at steinbergspeaks.com.
Wow.
And they can just sign up. And we've had them at every age. We had somebody at 13, somebody at 70. You know, the bulk of them are in undergrad law school, sports marketing programs, but they're all sorts of people who want a career shift.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'll make sure that's in the show notes to make it a little bit easier for the listeners who want to join.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to shift gears a little bit because you did talk about this. All right, we talked about it in the intro, but we've also talked about it a little bit in the green room. But you were raising awareness about concussions, decades before it became mainstream issue in sports. With the launch of your foundation, what do you ultimately hope to accomplish in shaping the future of player safety and brain health?
So I had a crisis of conscience back in the 1980s. Is my job just to put more dollars into bank books, or is it to safeguard the long-term health of players and think about how they'll be for the rest of their life?
Yeah,
And my players, representing half the starting quarterbacks, they kept getting hit in the head. And we go to doctors and ask, how many is too many? When should you contemplate retirement? They had no answers.
Hmm.
So I started holding concussion conferences, and the first one was in 1994. And we had neurologists from across the country come, and Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Warren Moon, Drew Bledsoe, and a number of players were there.
Yeah,
By the time we got to 2006, Bennett Amalu, who was a doctor in the Concussion movie, uh, testified at one of our conferences that three or more he thought was the magic trigger. And after that, you had exponentially higher rates of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, premature senility, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression. So
yeah,
I called it a ticking time bomb and an undiagnosed health epidemic.
yeah.
And it's not just the hit, Dylan, it's the subconcussive event. So every time at the inception of a play, a lineman hits a lineman, it produces a little bit of brain change.
Hmm.
You could have an offensive lineman who played for 10 years in the NFL and played college and high school ball, who had 10,000 subconcussive events, none of which have been diagnosed, none of which he's aware of, but the
Yeah.
aggregate almost certainly does the same brain damage as getting knocked out 4 times. So we continued to have these brain health summits at the party. And then I thought, it's probably time to set up a foundation that raises money into research for better ways to diagnose and better ways to cure.
Yeah.
And then could we help at-risk communities? And I found two treatments that seemed to help through the concept of neuroplasticity to rewire a concussed brain. And
Mhm.
the first is called RTMS, which is magnets against the brain, and the second is neurofeedback.
Hmm.
And so there are all sorts of interesting new modalities. So I experimented with hyperbaric oxygen and stem cell
Yeah.
and red light, all of which are anti-inflammatory, and can help the brain heal. And red light and Bimini and Nanovi and a series of healing modalities. And hopefully we take these into sports and fuel energy and performance at the end of a game, like last night's Baltimore Buffalo game,
Yeah.
and also bring players back quicker from injury.
hmm Yeah, I was just going to ask that. You can incorporate this during the season, not wait till they're done with sports, right? So it makes sense to do it now rather than later. To me, football is the best sport in the world. I love football. I played it my entire life. But you're absolutely right. How many undiagnosed concussions are there? People are having them all the time. It's a fast sport, violent sport, but it makes a lot of sense to be able to start taking care of your mind and brain now rather than waiting till you're done playing the sport, especially for the guys who have these really long careers. Steve Young, like you mentioned, was plagued with concussions, right? And so it's good to be able to start taking care of it now and doing the research and amazing technologies that can assist these players. So I love that you're doing this.
So let's be clear. I love football also.
Yeah.
And I think it teaches great life lessons, postponing current gratification for future success, work ethic. It teaches use of information that's complex in real time, teaches teamwork. It teaches performance in adversity. These are all great life lessons, which I think can help somebody throughout their life.
Yeah.
We're not trying to hurt it, we're just trying to make it safer.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. So I love that it is at the forefront of the sport too. It was talked about. It's continuing to be talked about. They're improving the equipment. So it's good because I mean, who wants to yeah, it's great to have all this money during this, when you're playing, but once you're out of it, and then you're just gonna have a life of issues, right? So who would want that? And it's amazing that you guys are doing this.
Yes.
So I also wanted to talk about your new book coming out, because you're working on your new book and reportedly was focusing on resilience, empathy, and lessons you've learned throughout your career. What inspired you to write this next chapter, and what do you hope, readers take away from it?
Well, I had a struggle 15 years ago with alcohol, and I had to break denial and find a program, a unique fellowship with a 12-step program to be
Right.
able to come back and be functional and productive again. And it strikes me that life will set all of us back with reverses that are unanticipated and unforeseen. Whether it's a romantic or marital breakup,
Yeah.
whether it's economics, and economic crash, whether it's substance abuse. So the question is not, will life present challenges? They're inevitable.
Yeah.
The question is, if you've crashed and gone through a consequential event, how do you get back?
Yeah.
You rise like the phoenix from the ashes? How do you find resilience and light at the end of the tunnel? So it's stories of people who have faced life challenges and how they came back. I also have a lot uh, of football and sports in it, but it's stories of uh, June Jones, a coach who hit a concrete stanchion in his car on the freeway.
Mhm.
It's Troy Aikman living through the fact that he was the number one pick in the draft, and a month later they drafted another quarterback to be a
Yeah.
competitor. It's Steve Young sitting behind Joe Montana. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's a variety of people and how they face. So hopefully it's got life lessons that people can adapt into their own life to deal with adversity.
Hmm. Man, I cannot wait for that to come out and read
Super
it.
Bowl.
Yeah, is that when it's coming out? Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. It's
Awesome.
just about when we throw our big Super Bowl party.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I had one of my friends and I actually interviewed him who was at your Super Bowl party last year. So that's amazing. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll make sure that we promote it as well. And Leigh, this has been amazing. For listeners who want to learn more about your work, your Concussion Foundation, and stay updated with your upcoming book, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So the foundation is Leigh Steinberg Foundation.org. And then I'm on all the usual suspects. I do a thing called Wednesday Wisdom on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and X. And but people are welcome to tune in or make contact.
Perfect. Yes, I follow that very closely, especially the Wednesday wisdom. All right, well, Leigh, I really do appreciate you spending time today. I do want to ask you one more question before we go, just for the entrepreneurs out there. With more than 4 billion negotiated, 1 billion directly to charities, and a career with that's has literally touched every corner of sports. What's one piece of advice would you give to leaders and entrepreneurs who want to create a meaningful impact in their own industries?
Um, Try to read and try to learn every day.
Mm,
Um, reading's the lost art.
yes.
If you read newspapers and magazines and continue to stay up so that you have a sense of where markets are going, where opportunity lies, if you can predict the future and have vision, and see the niches and openings in the market for a better mousetrap, a better modality, better problem solving, a better technology. But it means keeping yourself aware of what's happening. And the other key is in dealing with other people, put yourself in that person's heart and mind. Try to see what's advantageous so you can do a win-win interaction.
Mm, wow. That is amazing advice, Leigh. Thank you so much for, sharing that with everyone. Again, thank you for joining me today and the listeners. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, Dylan.